Now let's bring you, an update from Rivers State, where the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has, of course, stopped the electoral umpire, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, from conducting by-elections for the 27 defected People's Democratic Party lawmakers. You recall a couple of days ago, sometime last week, the lawmakers' seats were declared vacant by the state's party chapter, including the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Martins Amaule, and 26 others said to be loyalists of the Federal Capital Territory Minister, Nyesom Wike, after they defected from the APC on the 11th of December.
Meanwhile, just yesterday, major stakeholders in the political crisis that has affected Rivers State finally agreed to share their swords. This was after stakeholders and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu called for a closed-door meeting with the warring parties, Governor Siminalayi Fubara, Nyesom Wike, and other stakeholders, including the former governor of the state, Peter Odili, at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja. The PDP has reacted negatively, expressing dissatisfaction with the president's intervention. Well, we also have a poll running this morning, so head to our social media handle on X and answer the question, should President should President Tinubu interfere in PDP's internal crisis? And the hashtag is NC Breakfast Central. We'll be taking the poll at the end of the show. Joining us this morning to look at this and share his thoughts is a political analyst by the name Andrew Enwenta. Good morning, Mr. Enwenta. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
You look very ready for the season. So compliments of the season and Merry Christmas in advance.
It's obvious the economy is not affecting your Christmas celebration, Mr. Enwenta.
I didn't get that.
I said it's obvious the economy is not affecting your Christmas celebration. You're not one of those who's complaining.
I think Christmas is a time to be happy. So at times you don't want to look at the situation, and you don't want the situation to reflect in how you look. So you want to make it most of it, and that's what Christmas is about. It's a season to be happy, to be merry, and a season to give. So the little we have, it is for us to share.
All right.
And I think that's the most important of Christmas.
Okay, that's the spirit of Christmas and the joy of Christmas. And maybe it's the same spirit of Christmas that has made President Bola Ahmed Tinubu intervene in the crisis between Nyesom Wike and Siminalayi Fubara. And I think I'll start by getting your thoughts on that. Are you excited by the president's intervention, or you think that it's something that he should have stayed out of and that the two of them should have sorted out themselves like two mature adults?
Yeah, thank you, because the intervention of Mr. President was timely, because the situation was getting messy. Just as you noted, yesterday there was the Federal High Court decision, recognizing the Honorable Martin Amague faction, to the extent of also trying to prevent INEC from conducting elections in what was alleged to have been the declaration of the 27 Wike lawmakers seat vacant. And of course, there was a crisis in the hands of the leadership of Rivers State that required some superior intervention. And I think the intervention of Mr. President is something that we must commend. This is not the first time we'll be intervening. During the Ondo situation, it was more like an intra-party situation involving members of the same party. But because the people of Ondo were involved, the vacuum created by the absence of the governor, remember the first situation where the deputy governor was to be impeached, the president intervened. And secondly, when the president felt that the governor cannot just stay away continuously, he was to go for medical leave. So he also intervened for the House of Assembly to allow the deputy governor to act as governor. We've had that before in Nigeria in 2010, when the doctrine of necessity was invoked to allow Jonathan to act as president. So coming back to the Rivers State situation, I also want to remind us that a whole lot of Nigerians appeal to the president, the likes of Chief E.K. Clark and others. Even E.K. Clark wrote a letter asking Mr. President to intervene. And I think it is a political solution. The matters in court, remember, you have two conflicting orders, one from the Rivers State High Court and the one delivered by Justice Okuruwo of the Federal High Court yesterday. So it was almost becoming a state of anomy, a state of lawlessness a situation where the governor ordered the demolition of the House of Assembly. I mean, the House of Assembly is not just a building, but it is a symbol of our democratic institution. That is not to say that what the other faction was doing is right, but as they say, two wrongs cannot make it right. So I think this political solution will bring some semblance of law and order in reverse, because when you look at the terms of the terms of the settlement, it's a win-win situation. Those commissioners that were made to who had to resign under these terms of settlement, their names will now be resubmitted to the House of Assembly. The governor presented his budget to 3 members, including the Speaker. I mean, that is a mockery of democracy. That was not a budget presentation. The appropriation law, it's a product of a well-organized setup. That would have been a very bad precedent if that was allowed to stand. So the governor will now properly present the appropriation bill to a properly constituted Rivers State House of Assembly, and not that ragtag number that cannot even move anything apart from the fact that they met in government house. That was the only thing that one can say, yes, had a semblance of a government activity. But for me, it was what the Yorubas would call an alawada dance. So having said that, I think Mr. President's intervention was timely. And remember, as the ECOWAS chairman, he intervenes in political situations elsewhere. So they say charity begins at home. And for those arguing that, oh, there was no constitutional basis for that, Section 19, sub B of our Constitution, allows for the settlement of international disputes, quote and unquote, by way of negotiation, mediation, conciliation, and arbitration. So it was a way of domesticating that particular provision of our Constitution. So if you ask me, it was political mediation, and as we speak, it's a new dawn in reverse politics. So that we will not be talking of impeachment again, because the terms of settlement also includes that clause that the impeachment.
Sorry to just quickly interject. Just so you highlight, and I understand what you're saying quite clearly. This section of the Constitution that you've quoted that provides for international settlements, you believe that the president has domesticated it, and shouldn't we see that if the Constitution intended for us to have that domestic provision, it would have made room for it?
I'm a constitutional lawyer, and these are things that we, look at. That's why I use the word domestication. I didn't say, and I was very specific. It talks about settlement of international disputes. And remember, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is an international legislation, has been domesticated in Nigeria. So you are talking about the rights of rivers people. So will the president allow lives and property to be in danger or to be at risk? He's the commander-in-chief, and in the exercise of that power, he had to intervene. Remember, what led to the first military coup was a coterie of crises, including the parliamentary crisis in the then Western region. And just like what happened in the Western region, it was a crisis between Awolowo and his political son Akintola. So you find that history is about to repeat itself. So what is now the duty of the commander-in-chief is to rein in on the parties for there to be law and order, for governance to move on smoothly. Because I can tell you that governance has been on a standstill in Rivers State. What we had was 2 groups of persons meeting under the guise of House of Assembly, and you have 2 court orders. So the intervention of Mr. President is timely. And I just refer to the provisions of Section 19, sub B. And I actually did say that charity must begin at home. Mr. President cannot be activating the provisions of Section 19D in settling of disputes elsewhere in Mali and in other West African states, where the state in its own country is in crisis. So I think the intervention is in order, and there's a constitutional basis for it.
Mr. Enwenta, shouldn't it be worrisome? Because I don't know if we're being serious here. Shouldn't it be worrisome, that we can have this level of political chaos that is brought about by Godfatherism? And let's not act like we don't know where it's coming from. It's brought about by Godfatherism. We're in 2023. Shouldn't it be worrisome that we've simply accepted that we can have this level of chaos? We can have commissioners just decide one morning that they are all, resigning. We can have, House of Assembly members just randomly wake up one morning and defect to another party. And once again, all brought about by Godfatherism, nothing more. Shouldn't it be a problem or a worrisome thing that in 2023, we Nigerians, or Nigerians are saying that it's okay that the president stepped in to, act as a father figure, in this type of situation. When we have institutions, we have a constitution, we have laws, we have things that are already in place to ensure that we do not mismanage, the polity and mismanage our democracy. Where instead so what if President Tinubu decided Simfobara must go? I mean, so why are we leaving laws and leaving, the journey that Nigeria should be, going on and these things in the hands of one individual and how he feels? So if he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and decides that, in fact, the whole of the River State House of Assembly must be burned down, to please his, which one side of this divide or the other, are we also going to say, yes, the president in his wisdom is I mean, help me understand what we're saying here.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think the president was very interested in intervening in the sense that, he mandated the parties. I think the dispute was referred to him. And it was because of the way and manner a whole lot of Nigerians, cried out to Mr. President. I'm not holding brief for him. As a father of the nation, he holds that duty. It is a constitutional duty, it is a moral duty, and it is a duty owed not just to the people of Rivers State, but to Nigerians, because the situation in Rivers was becoming very embarrassing. I earlier did say the governor would just wake up in the morning. First of all, they burnt the part of the House of Assembly building. Then only for the governor one day, because he's afraid of impeachment, which is a constitutional procedure, for the building, the entire House of Assembly complex to be brought down. These buildings were built with taxpayers' money. For me, nothing can describe anarchy more than that. So I don't think Mr. President's intervention is something that we should just, say as a one-off intervention. It is an intervention that I think in the future should be adopted in resolving crisis situations. You talked of the problem of Godfatherism. We still have a fledgling democracy. It's exactly what is playing out in Edo State. The governor of Edo State is interested in a particular candidate, and you see the way he has been treating his deputy. Pull the deputy away from the government house, made the deputy governor's office not to have access to funds, and we expect that a day will come when, just like in Rivers, where a deputy governor is being treated like a slave, Mr. President will intervene. It's just that the Edo issue was not referred to Mr. President. Godfatherism is one problem. If we don't deal with this problem once and for all, it will continue to be with us. And the problem with this same issue of Godfatherism is the fact that we don't have strong institutions. What is the role of the political party? I mean, in the 1979 period when we had elections, this problem of Godfatherism was not as pervasive as it is today, where one man will decide who becomes governor, who becomes deputy governor, who becomes speaker of the House of Assembly, who becomes local government chairman. I think the people are the ones that will take that decision by saying no to Godfatherism. And I think it's also because of our economic situation. When you look at the cost of contesting the election in Nigeria, it's way too high. INEC needs to review some of all these things. And I think it is a leadership thing. You saw the FCT Minister, the former governor of Rivers State, His Excellency Yusuf Minki, allude to the fact that he bought the forms, the nomination forms of all contestants.
Mr. Enwenta, can you hear me? Kindly hold on. Kindly hold on. Kindly hold on. Because I want us to get exactly, things right here. There's an existing constitution. There are laws. The PDP has put out a statement saying that Section 109, subsection 1 of the Constitution should not be ignored. That if people defect from their party to another party, that it means that they automatically lose their seats. And this is what I'm pointing out to you, that it should be worrisome to you as a Nigerian. The same way that you've spoken against Godfatherism or the influence of Godwin Obaseki in the elections in Edo State. Shouldn't it be the same thing that plays out in River State? And should the president's statement immediately dissolve what Section 109 of the Constitution says? Do you see where there's a, there's a problem here?
Thank you, because if you ask me, the Constitution was not made for inanimate beings, but the provisions of the Constitution applies to Nigerians. A situation where, for instance, a governor is to be impeached, that's a constitutional procedure, right? So if you ask me, what is not the essence of mediation? The essence of mediation is you give and take. Those members whose seats were I mean, allegedly declared vacant. Who declared their seat vacant? If you must face it, can 5 members, I mean, not just 5, 4, because their number is very fraudulent, because you have 4 of them as against 27, because you have one particular member who is sick, who they claim is part of the 5. So you have 4 members saying that they form the House of Assembly, which has an entire membership of 32. I mean, that's a micro of democracy. Nobody's seat was declared vacant. That never existed in law. Because when you talk of House of Assembly, you are talking of 27 members sitting in one place. You have 4 members sitting in one place. Then which is the House of Assembly? Of course, that was a crisis situation. Because in the first place, there was no basis for 4 members of the House of Assembly to sit. Was that a quorum? You need 1/3 of the membership of the House to sit. So you cannot talk of the fact that those people's seats were declared vacant. You cannot activate a provision of the Constitution where others have been violated. So for me, there was nothing like declaration. And of course, that was what the Federal High Court held yesterday. The Federal High Court has restrained INEC, because that's a mockery of the provisions of Section 109. And you agree with me that you cannot have a situation where you have 32 members, 4 persons will now say, hey, they control the leadership of the House. That is not democracy. If democracy is a game of numbers, it's not democracy. It is not even under the Constitution that 4 members will constitute a House of Assembly made up of 32 members. The mistake may have been made in Edo, because those members in Edo House of Assembly were not sworn in, but these 27 members were sworn into office to represent their various constituencies.
Let's talk about...
Those 4 members met the government house, it does not give legitimacy to what they did. The fact that the government even demolished the House of Assembly does not give legitimacy to the argument that because the House of Assembly does not have a structure in place, that 4 members can go to government house. I mean, that for me is mockery of democracy.
All right.
So two wrongs, as I say, cannot make it right. So
absolutely, I agree with you.
To get out of this logjam was the political solution they reached.
I agree with you. I agree with you as to the fact that 2 wrongs cannot make it right. And there really have been 2 wrongs from both sides of the divide. But let's talk about the Minister of the FCT here and his influence, his interactions with Rivers State. What are your thoughts on how he has carried on? Do you think that he should have as much influence, or as much should Rivers State pander to Nyesom Wike's rules and regulations, and the way in which he has carried on his affairs concerning Rivers State and the allegations of tampering with his political structure? Do you think that he should have as much influence in Rivers State as opposed to focusing on the FCT?
Yeah, thank you. I will take exception to those who believe that the FCT Minister has totally taken up a new role in Rivers State. And you know, it is the kind of politics we have in Nigeria, which I alluded earlier when I talked about the fact that the FCT Minister was responsible for purchasing funds of all the elected, public officers, from governor down to House of Assembly members. The truth is, we must now ask ourselves, how do we want to bring sanity to our politics? I made reference to the fact that INEC itself is part of the problem. When you look at the nomination fees, you discover that at times you need to rob a bank to run for, say, the office of governor, at the level of a party, at the level of INEC. So I think INEC must set new ground rules. It is not just enough to say female aspirants, the issue of nomination form should be waived for them. How about youth? How about others who are not very privileged? It is because our politics is so monetized that an individual, just the way you have the FCT Minister, can call the shots. In fact, he's in Abuja, but he controls what happens in Rivers State. It is what the people have submitted to. And as we have it today, he's the leader of both the APC and PDP in Rivers State. So you will not blame him. It is the people that have accepted him as their leader. When the governor wanted to contest, the governor accepted the terms and conditions. And remember, we are having a 3rd world politics here. We're not talking of America. It took America how many years? Even in Britain, we had a situation where a king was killed. The Cromwell ordered for the execution of King Charles I. So their democracy went through those throes. There was a time Parliament was closed for close to 11 years in England. So we are also going through that incubation process. We are going through that same metamorphosis of now having what one can call a liberal kind of democracy. And as such, we must try to see how our institutions will be greater than individuals. A situation where you have conflicting court orders, a situation where the governor orders the House of Assembly complex to be brought down. Was Wike responsible for that? Of course, Wike was not responsible for that. Was Wike responsible for only 4 members sitting in the House of Assembly? I mean, that's a mockery of our institutions. A situation where the House of Assembly, we don't even know where to do, because the governor has demolished the building completely. Yeah. So I'm happy that we have a situation which, for me, remains a win-win situation.
Yes, but how do you think?
Everything that is pushed to the courts.
Yeah. How do you think we can respect the institutions better if you're saying that Sim Fubara should simply, respect the, agreement that he had, when he was getting into office, he should accept the terms and conditions. I mean, if you say that that's what it should play out as, then how do you, at the same time say that we should fix our institutions? How is that possible?
No,
and is it okay? Is it okay?
What I said, just to correct the impression.
Yeah, I just want to, finish. Is it also okay?
A settlement or an agreement as to how things will be done, because they have a political structure. We're not there. I think that must have been done in the sanctuary.
Yeah, but so shouldn't your voice, Mr. Enwenta?
That's right. I'm not justifying is happening. I'm not justifying it, but I said they have their own agreements. Right? Because when they were reaching these agreements, both parties were happy. There were concentrations from both ends. Sim agreed to the governor, Wike agreed to the godfather, right? But that does not make it right. I'm not saying what is happening is right, but what I'm saying is that when they had those agreements, Sim had the option of saying, no, Maoga, I will not accept these conditions. I will not accept these conditions. So coming back to the real issue, now that we are here, what is now the way forward? And I'm happy that there's a political solution. So in the future, it's an eye-opener for aspirants. You don't just accept terms and conditions without weighing the implications. Because as it stands, the 27 APC lawmakers are the ones that are in charge. And the governor has the fear. The fear is, if I don't go with this, I'll be impeached. So he has to accept it the way it is. For the people of Rivers to enjoy the dividends of democracy, certain sacrifices must be made.
What dividends of democracy are we speaking about here? What dividends of democracy are we expecting them to receive when 80% or 90% of the commissioners are not loyal to the governor? What dividends of democracy are we expecting to do that they would enjoy when the House of Assembly members, 27 of them, don't want the governor? What dividends of democracy are we talking about?
Just to add to that, he's been instructed to represent the budget to this House that is largely against him and against his style of leadership. So how much more success do you think that he can attain as governor with a House that is not in sync with him?
I think for me, that's where politics come in, except he's saying that, because let me be very plain here. He came into politics as a civil servant, right? He was the accountant general of the state. And he may not have had the kind of relationship he has had with some of the political players. And I think now that the president has intervened, it is not for him because he's so eager to build structure. That's what I suspect, because you had 4 members of the House of Assembly loyal to him. The same way he has extended certain courtesies to these 4 persons, he can do the same with the 27. I don't think Wike will come from Abuja to direct these people what to do. He's the governor. He controls the security votes of the state. He controls the entire local government system. So there's a way he would not be able to play politics by reaching out to these individuals, because I think it was too early in the day for him to go into any fight. I don't think he has done more than 1 year in office. So for me, he needs to put his house in order. The buck stops on the table, just the way Harold Truman said, the former American president, the buck stops here. So as the governor of the state is the father of the state. So it is not for him to now say, oh, Wike, no, you are not the governor. The buck stops on your table. Wike did not blame Amechi for the crisis that he had at some point. He didn't blame, Amechi did not blame Audrey for the crisis he had at some point. So he has to take charge of his house.
All right.
Those commissioners are his appointees.
We need to go.
He has the right to hire and fire. So for me, it is for him to play politics. There's nothing wrong in him now trying to say, okay, because the House of Assembly members complain he has not been paying them their allowances, pay them their allowances. And at the end of it, you find that these are individuals. They are human beings. They are not beasts. They are human beings. Yeah, so you have to manage them. and
Yeah.
the politics of the state, his work for me is paramount.
Absolutely.
Because if he had put
hold
the
on.
house in order, I don't think Mr. President would have had cause to intervene in the internal crisis of the state.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was him failing to put his house in order or just the interference of the person who's meant to be the minister of the FCT. I think that's where the challenge is here. It's not him not being able to put his house in order. But like you said, we don't know. We weren't there when these agreements were signed, and I don't know if Godwin Obaseki is allowed to also have an agreement with whoever is going to be taking over in Edo State, and we would all accept that they had an agreement. So anything that they agreed on, let them enjoy. It's not our business. I don't know. I don't know.
In the case of Godwin Obaseki did not start fighting with Shomole a year after his election. The crisis in Obaseki was elected in 2016. He started fighting with Shomole after 4 years. So I think since fight was too early, if you ask me, it was just too early.
Well, let's wait 2 years.
2020, I think 3 years after.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So 3 years is a benchmark where you can start fighting your godfather.
Mr. Enwenta, we have to have you back because there are so many issues that we still need to trash out concerning the political structures and systems in Nigeria. But thank you for joining us. We've run out of time for this conversation. Thank you for joining us.